The morning sun, still a soft blush on the horizon, painted Lily's garden in hues of nascent gold. Dewdrops clung like tiny jewels to the velvet petals of her moon-dusted roses, and the air hummed with the industrious buzz of early bees. Lily, her fingers nimble and stained with rich earth, moved among her blooms, a silent symphony of care. Her basket, woven from willow branches, slowly filled with an array of vibrant blossoms, the fiery snapdragons, the serene bluebells, and the fragrant lavender. Each flower was carefully selected, a silent offering to the villagers who would soon arrive, their own gardens perhaps less bountiful, their spirits in need of a splash of color. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves of the ancient oak at the garden's edge, carrying with it the scent of fresh-baked bread from the village bakery. Lily smiled, a quiet joy illuminating her features. She plucked a particularly perfect sun petal, its unfurled bloom a miniature sun, and tucked it behind her ear. These unique flowers, the pride of her garden, were more than just beautiful. They held a peculiar luminescence after dusk, a soft, inner glow that made them seem to breathe with captured starlight. "Morning, Lilybug!" A cheerful voice cut through the quiet. Tom, his dark hair tousled and a wide grin on his face, vaulted over the low stone wall that marked the garden's boundary. He carried a small, intricately carved wooden bird, its wings poised for flight. "Another masterpiece, I see." He gestured to her overflowing basket. Lily chuckled, her eyes sparkling. "Just sharing a little bit of sunshine, Tom. What marvel have you brought today?" Tom held out the bird. "A wren. Thought it might enjoy your lavender patch. And I was thinking, Lily, about those sun petals of yours." He leaned against the wall, his gaze sweeping across the garden. "Imagine if every house in the village had a window box filled with them. The whole village would glow. It would be unlike anything anyone has ever seen. People would come from miles around just to witness it." Lily's brow furrowed slightly. "They are beautiful, yes, but they are also delicate, Tom, and they need so much care." "Exactly!" Tom's enthusiasm was infectious. "That's what makes them special. And we could make it happen. Your green thumb, my cleverness." He winked. "We could cultivate them, nurture them, make our village the village of glowing petals. Think of it, Lily. It wouldn't just be a pretty sight. It would put us on the map. Imagine the recognition, the prosperity." His eyes gleamed with a youthful ambition that, while admirable, sometimes made Lily's gentle heart flutter with a touch of apprehension. He was a dreamer, a grand architect of possibilities, and while she admired his drive, her own desires were simpler, rooted in the quiet contentment of her garden. "It sounds grand," Lily mused, carefully placing a handful of marigolds into her basket. "But it also sounds like a lot of work, and for what? My greatest joy is watching them grow, not in how many people come to see them." Tom walked over, kneeling beside her. "But imagine the joy you'd bring to so many more, Lily, not just the few villagers who pass by. Think bigger. Think of the stories they'd tell, the legends that would grow around our village. You're a magician with these flowers. You could transform everything." He picked up a stray sun petal, admiring its complex structure. "And I could help you. I could build the special trellises, design the watering systems, help you plant them all over the village. We'd be a team." His earnestness, the sheer brilliance in his eyes, was hard to resist. Lily, ever trusting, found herself softening. "It would certainly be a sight," she conceded, a small smile playing on her lips. A village lit by the sun petals, gentle glow. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples, Lily and Tom sat on the stone bench overlooking the garden. The air grew cooler, carrying the earthy scent of drying leaves. One by one, the sun petals began to emit their soft, ethereal light. A gentle pulse, a quiet heartbeat of illumination, spread through the garden. It wasn't a bright, overwhelming light, but a tender, comforting radiance, as if the moon itself had scattered its essence upon the blooms. "Look at them," Lily whispered, her voice filled with reverence. "They're breathing." Tom watched, his earlier exuberance replaced by a quiet awe. "They truly are magical, Lily. You have something truly extraordinary here." He reached out, his finger hovering just above a glowing petal. more than just beautiful, they're hopeful. They remind you that even in the darkest night, there's always a little light waiting to emerge. Lily nodded, a feeling of deep peace settling over her. In that moment, surrounded by the gentle glow of her sun petals and the quiet companionship of her friend, the grand dreams of recognition and prosperity seemed distant, almost irrelevant. The simple beauty of the moment was enough. The warmth of the glowing petals, the soft whisper of the night breeze, and the shared wonder were treasures far more precious than any fame. The thought of extending this quiet magic to her entire village, of sharing this profound serenity with every doorstep, began to take root in her heart, nurtured by Tom's infectious vision. Perhaps, she mused, it wasn't about the recognition, but about spreading a little more of this gentle hope. The midday sun, usually a comforting presence, felt particularly harsh as a dust cloud billowed into the village square. From its churning depths emerged a carriage unlike any the villagers had ever seen. Lacquered obsidian panels gleamed, polished brass fittings glinted, and the four massive black-maned horses snorted plumes of white vapor. It screeched to a halt with an audible groan of its axles, drawing every gaze. A hush fell, broken only by the nervous shuffle of feet. A man, as impeccably dressed as his conveyance, stepped out. He was tall, with a confident stride that seemed to declare ownership of the very ground he walked on. His cloak, a rich emerald green, billowed around him, and a silk cravat, impossibly white, was fastened beneath a strong, clean-shaven jaw. His eyes, though, were what truly held attention, sharp, discerning, and constantly evaluating. This was Silas Blackwood. He surveyed the modest square, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips, before his gaze settled on Lily, who stood near the well, a basket of freshly gathered herbs in her arm, and Tom, who had hurried to her side, a protective hand hovering at her elbow. "Good people of this charming hamlet," Blackwood's voice boomed, rich and resonant, carrying easily across the square. "I am Silas Blackwood, and I bring tidings of prosperity, of fame, of a future brighter than your wildest dreams." His arms swept grandly, encompassing the entire village. "I have journeyed far, following whispers of a most extraordinary creation, the Sun Petals." His eyes, like a hawk's, fixed on Lily. "Miss Lily, I presume? The artisan of these magnificent creations?" Lily, unaccustomed to such direct, intense attention, felt a blush creep up her neck. She clutched her basket tighter. Tom, however, puffed out his chest a little, a nascent pride blooming within him. "Indeed, sir," he interjected, a slight tremor in his voice. "Lily is the creator." Silas Blackwood approached them, his smile radiating charm, yet his eyes remained calculating. "My dear Lily, your talent is wasted in this rustic setting. These sun petals, as I understand, capture light, glow with an inner radiance. Imagine them, not merely adorning your windows, but illuminating the grandest halls, the most opulent ballrooms, the deepest minds. Imagine a world lit by your ingenuity." He lowered his voice, making it sound like a shared secret. "I offer you, both of you, a partnership. I have the means, the connections, the vision to take your sun petals to every corner of the known world. Wealth beyond imagining, a legacy that will echo through generations. Your village, too, will flourish. New roads, new markets, a bustling trade hub, all fueled by the demand for your wondrous creation." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken promises. "What say you? A simple agreement, and the future is yours." Lily's heart pounded, a mix of awe and apprehension. She glanced at Tom, whose eyes were wide, gleaming with an almost feverish excitement. "Lily, can you imagine?" Tom whispered, pulling her slightly aside, his voice urgent. "He's talking about our sun petals being everywhere. Think of it, no more struggling to sell a few at the market. Our village, it could become famous. We could build a proper school, a real clinic. No more cold winters, no more hungry nights. This is it, Lily. This is our chance." Lily's gaze drifted to the faces of their neighbors, their expressions a mix of hope and cautious curiosity. She saw the longing in their eyes, the quiet desperation for a better life. "But Tom, she murmured, her voice laced with doubt. "We don't know him. What if it's too much? What about our simple life?" "Simple life?" Tom's voice rose, a hint of exasperation in it. "Lily, simple means barely scraping by. This man, he's offering us a way out, a way to truly help everyone. He sees the brilliance in your work, something we've only dreamed of. Think of the respect, the honor. We'd never have to worry again. Please, Lily, this is our moment. We can't let it slip away." He squeezed her hand, his eyes pleading, filled with a vision of grandeur that was both intoxicating and terrifying. Lily looked from Tom's earnest, eager face to Silas Blackwood, who waited patiently, a knowing glint in his sharp eyes. The weight of Tom's hopes, the unspoken desires of their village, settled heavily on her shoulders. She took a deep, shaky breath. The morning air, usually bustling with the sounds of daily chores, was hushed, thick with a collective breath held. Sunlight, filtered through the ancient oak at the village center, dappled the carefully selected sun petals. They glowed, not just with their inherent warmth, but with the hopes of everyone present. Lily knelt beside the basket, her fingers tracing the delicate curve of a golden blossom. A pang, sharp and unexpected, pierced her. These weren't just flowers, they were fragments of her joy, carefully cultivated, now destined for a world beyond her reach. She felt a profound connection to each petal, a silent promise whispered into its vibrant hue. "They're perfect, Lily," Tom murmured, his voice a low thrum of excitement next to her. He squeezed her shoulder, his touch firm and reassuring. "Silas will be thrilled. This is it, our chance." He looked toward the waiting carriage, a sleek, dark contraption that felt utterly foreign in their humble square, and then back at Lily, his eyes alight with the vision of their future. He saw recognition, prosperity, the end of their struggles. "Think of the good this will do for everyone, for the village." Lily nodded, though her gaze remained fixed on the sun petals. A part of her wanted to snatch them back, to bury them deep in her garden where they could simply be, untouched by the outside world. But the faces of the villagers, gathered in a respectful semicircle, were etched with a quiet optimism. Barnaby stood near Alara, a half-finished pastry forgotten in his hand, his usually jovial expression softened by the shared anticipation. Even Alara, typically serene, watched with a flicker of hope in her deep-set eyes. They had all invested, not just their meager savings, but their faith, in Silas Blackwood's grand design. "They'll be safe, Lily," Tom insisted, sensing her lingering hesitation. He reached down, gently closing the lid of the wicker basket. Silas promised. "He's a man of his word, a man of influence. He knows their value." He spoke with an unwavering conviction that, for a fleeting moment, eased the knot in Lily's stomach. Silas Blackwood himself strode forward then, his tailored coat a stark contrast to the homespun garments of the villagers. A practiced smile played on his lips, radiating an easy charm that had captivated them all. He gestured expansively towards the basket. "Magnificent! Truly magnificent, Lily. You have outdone yourself. These will be the talk of the capital, mark my words." His gaze, however, lingered on Tom, a silent acknowledgement of their shared ambition passing between them. He took the basket with a casual ease that belied the precious cargo within, his movements unhurried, almost theatrical. "Fear not, my friends," he announced to the assembled villagers, his voice carrying clearly through the stillness. "These sun petals will bring prosperity to us all. Your faith will be rewarded tenfold." A ripple of murmurs, hushed and grateful, spread through the crowd. As Silas turned and moved towards his waiting carriage, the morning sun caught the glint of his silver-buckled shoes. He climbed in, the carriage door closing with a soft thud that resonated like a final pronouncement. The driver, a stern-faced man in dark livery, flicked the reins. The horses, sleek and powerful, pawed at the ground once, then began to move, their hooves kicking up dust from the packed earth. Lily watched the carriage recede, growing smaller and smaller against the winding road that led out of the valley. A hollow ache settled in her chest. The sun petals were gone. With them went a tangible piece of her, carried away by a man whose promises now bore the weight of their entire village's future. Tom, oblivious to her quiet despair, clapped his hands together, a triumphant grin splitting his face. "This is it, Lily, our new beginning." Barnaby, ever the optimist, beamed. A grand day for the village indeed. A truly grand day. Ilara, however, remained silent, her gaze fixed on the empty space where the carriage had been, a faint, almost imperceptible shadow crossing her serene features. The air, once thick with anticipation, now hummed with a fragile hope, a collective whisper of what if. Lily, though, felt only the lingering ghost of the sun petals, a warmth now departed, leaving behind a chill she couldn't quite explain. The weeks that followed Silas's departure stretched into a season of anxious anticipation for Lily and Tom. The initial burst of excitement, the hopeful shimmer of a future blooming bright, gradually faded into a dull ache of uncertainty. Each morning, Lily would walk to the edge of their small field, her eyes scanning the distant path, searching for a familiar silhouette, a sign of their shared success. Each evening, Tom would return from his chores, his usual boisterous energy subdued, his gaze meeting Lily's with an unspoken question. The unique luminescence of the moonlight petals, once a source of wonder, now felt almost like a silent mockery, their beauty a constant reminder of promises unfulfilled. "He said he'd send word," Lily murmured one crisp afternoon, plucking a wilting leaf from a potted herb on her windowsill. Her voice was barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the lively chatter that usually filled their cottage. Tom, meticulously sharpening a small pruning knife, paused. "He will, Lily. The journey is long. Perhaps he's still making arrangements, finding the right buyers." His words lacked their usual conviction, a hollow echo in the quiet room. He had championed Silas's vision, convinced Lily that this was their chance to escape the cycle of barely enough. Now a gnawing worm of doubt burrowed in his stomach. Days bled into weeks, then into a full month. The harvest moon waned, then waxed again, casting its pale glow over fields that now held only stubble. The village, usually a vibrant hum of gossip and news, offered nothing. Travelers from the wider world were infrequent, and none brought tidings of a merchant selling extraordinary glowing flowers. It was Barnaby, his usually cheerful face creased with concern, who finally broke the silence. He arrived one brisk morning, clutching a basket of his famed spiced currant buns, his usual jovial greeting conspicuously absent. He sat heavily at Lily's kitchen table, his gaze darting between her and Tom. "Heard a troubling whisper," Barnaby began, his voice uncharacteristically low. "From a spice merchant just passed through from the coastal towns. Said he saw a display, grand and ostentatious, of flowers like nothing he'd ever witnessed." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Said they glowed, Lily, like captured starlight." Lily's heart leaped with a flicker of hope, but Barnaby's next words extinguished it, leaving a cold, empty space. He said the merchant, Silas, was presenting them as his own discovery, his botanical masterpiece. No mention of their true origin, no credit to anyone else. Barnaby avoided Lily's eye, his own filled with a mixture of anger and pity. He was selling them for an exorbitant sum, under his own name, claiming exclusive rights to their cultivation. The air in the small cottage grew thick with disbelief and a chilling sense of dread. Tom's face, usually quick to anger, was now a mask of stunned horror. He wouldn't, Tom stammered, the words catching in his throat. "He promised. He swore." Lily felt a crushing weight descend upon her, stealing her breath. The vibrant glow of the moonlight petals outside their window seemed to mock her, their beauty now tainted by betrayal. She walked to the window, her fingers tracing the condensation on the pane, her vision blurring. Later that afternoon, Ilara arrived, her presence a calming balm in the storm of their emotions. She listened patiently as Barnaby recounted the merchant's tale, her eyes fixed on Lily's pale face. When he finished, Ilara reached out, gently taking Lily's hand. Her touch was warm, reassuring. "I heard similar stories from the traders who came for the late harvest," Ilara confirmed, her voice soft but steady. "They spoke of a wealthy merchant, Silas, showcasing extraordinary luminous blooms. He claimed to have cultivated them himself after years of dedicated research." A sigh escaped her lips. "I had hoped for a different outcome, dear Lily," My heart aches for this deceit that has befallen you. Lily felt a tear trace a path down her cheek. The words, spoken with such quiet certainty, solidified the crushing truth. Silas had not just broken his word. He had stolen their very creation, their ingenuity, their dreams, and presented them as his own. The whispers were no longer just rumors. They were the bitter truth of betrayal. The vibrant hum that usually permeated Lily's small cottage was replaced by a heavy silence, thick as the morning mist. Days bled into one another, marked only by the slow descent of her spirit. The betrayal, sharp and unexpected, had carved a hollow space within her, echoing with a chilling emptiness. She moved through her rooms like a ghost, her once nimble fingers now listless, her bright eyes dimmed by an unshed sorrow. The colorful threads for her tapestries lay untouched, the clay for her small sculptures hardened on the workbench. Even the melody she used to hum, a cheerful, wordless tune, had been silenced, lost somewhere in the wreckage of her trust. Her sanctuary, the garden, bore the most poignant testament to her pain. Weeds, once diligently plucked, now sprouted brazenly between the paving stones. The once bustling insect life had dwindled to a few solitary bees. But it was the sun petals that truly mirrored her inner turmoil. Their glorious golden faces, usually turned with unwavering devotion towards the sky, had begun to droop. The vibrant yellow faded to a sickly ochre, the delicate edges curling inward as if in pain. A few, already past their prime, had shed their petals onto the damp earth, their skeletal stems standing as stark reminders of what had been lost. Lily would sometimes stand at the window, her gaze fixed on their wilting forms, feeling a profound connection to their suffering. They were her creations, born of her touch, and now they withered as her own heart did. Tom, meanwhile, was a storm of self-reproach. The echo of Ilara's gentle but firm words, the sight of Lily's withdrawn face, gnawed at him incessantly. He barely slept, the image of the wilting sun petals haunting his waking hours and invading his dreams. He'd pace the small confines of his own cottage, clenching and unclenching his fists, a raw knot of guilt tightening in his chest. He saw the wilting flowers not just as a consequence of his ambition, but as a living manifestation of Lily's broken spirit, a direct result of his foolish decision. He knew the blame was entirely his, a heavy shroud smothering any lingering sense of pride he might have once held. The grand visions of recognition and fortune that had once danced in his mind now felt like grotesque mockeries, cruel jests in the face of the quiet devastation he had wrought. He longed to speak to Lily, to beg for her forgiveness, but the shame was a formidable barrier. Each time he imagined her face, he saw only disappointment, and the words caught in his throat. One afternoon, Ilara found Lily sitting on her porch swing, a half-finished embroidery hoop forgotten in her lap. The air was thick with unspoken grief. Ilara sat beside her, offering a cup of steaming herbal tea without a word. The warmth of the mug was a small comfort against the chill in Lily's bones. "The garden looks tired," Ilara observed softly, her voice a balm. Lily merely nodded, her gaze distant. "They're dying, Ilara. The sun petals." "Perhaps they're just resting," Ilara suggested, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Even the strongest things need time to recover, to find their light again after a shadow has fallen." Lily traced the rim of her mug. "I feel like I'm resting too, but it's a heavy kind of rest, a tired kind." Ilara placed a comforting hand on Lily's arm. "Betrayal is a deep wound, my dear. It takes time to heal, and a quiet strength to tend to it." She paused, then added, "But remember, even in the deepest shadow, there is always the promise of dawn." Lily looked at Ilara then, a glimmer of something unfathomable in her eyes. The idea of dawn felt impossibly far away, yet Ilara's words, gentle as they were, planted a tiny, almost imperceptible seed of possibility in the barren landscape of her despair. The sun petals continued to droop, their golden glory fading, but in the quiet conversation on the porch, a different kind of strength, a resilient, enduring one, was beginning to stir within Lily. The air in Ilara's workshop hummed with the perfume of dried herbs and ancient parchment, a soothing counterpoint to the village's usual biting wind. Tom, however, was lost to it, his brow furrowed over a sprawling tome. Its brittle, age-yellowed pages bore meticulous drawings of flora long forgotten by all but a dedicated few. His fingers, typically deft with tools, now sifted through a pouch of minuscule dark seeds, unpromising specks, burdened with a village's fragile hope. Days bled into a single, relentless pursuit. Sleep offered scant reprieve, his dreams haunted by the ghostly, wilting pallor of the sun petals he had inadvertently destroyed. He'd exhausted every avenue, diverse soils, varying light, even whispered incantations overheard from Ilara's thriving kitchen garden. Each attempt culminated in the same desolate outcome, a barren patch, or, at best, a fleeting, weak shoot that withered before its first true leaf could unfurl. Guilt gnawed at him, a dull, persistent ache beneath his ribs. From her rocking chair by the hearth, Ilara observed him, her hand steadily weaving a complex pattern into a new blanket. She offered no unsolicited counsel, no judgment in her soft, knowing gaze. Her presence was a silent anchor in his tumultuous sea of self-reproach. Periodically, a warm cup of spiced tea would appear beside his scattered notes and discarded vials. "The old ways," she murmured one evening, her voice a gentle rustle like dry leaves, "are often set aside for their slowness, not their ineffectiveness." Tom looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "But they're intricate. This book demands specific lunar cycles for sowing, and soil enriched with minerals found only in the deepest caves. It feels insurmountable." Ilara's lips curved into a small, encouraging smile. "Or it demands patience, and a keen sense for the earth's subtle needs." She gestured towards a small, earthenware pot on his workbench, filled with a dark, rich loam he had painstakingly gathered from the ancient forest's floor. "That soil, it exudes life. Your choice was inspired." Emboldened, Tom resumed his work. He meticulously ground dried nettles and crushed eggshells into a fine powder, as the ancient texts prescribed. Then, with a surgeon's precision, he carefully pricked open one of the precious sun petal seeds, revealing a tiny, almost imperceptible kernel within. This was his most audacious experiment yet, a delicate grafting of the sun petal's genetic material onto the hardier stalk of a common mountain bloom, a plant renowned for its resilience against the harshest elements. He held his breath, the air thick with anticipation. The subsequent days were a torment of anticipation. Each morning he approached the small row of pots with a blend of dread and desperate hope. The first few days brought only the familiar sight of barren earth, his shoulders slumping further with each fresh disappointment. A leaden weight settled in his stomach. He was trying, truly trying, but perhaps his error was too profound, too irreversible. One chilly dawn, as the first pale slivers of light pierced through the workshop window, illuminating dancing dust motes, Tom rose with his usual weary resignation. He trudged towards the experimental pots, expecting nothing. But then, a flicker of green. So faint, so impossibly tiny, he almost dismissed it as a trick of the light. He knelt, his heart hammering against his ribs. There, pushing through the dark soil in the third pot from the left, was a miniature sprout, its two cotyledon leaves, no larger than a fly's wing, unfolded tentatively, a vibrant, courageous emerald against the brown. It was fragile, barely a whisper of life, but it was there. It was real. A choke sound escaped his throat, a mixture of a gasp and a sob. He reached out a trembling finger, not daring to touch it, as if too much attention might make it vanish. The sprout, though small, radiated a nascent strength, a stubborn refusal to be extinguished. It was a promise, a whisper of absolution, pushing its way through the very earth that had once swallowed his hopes whole. Ilara, quietly tending to her own herbs, looked up, a knowing glint in her eyes. She offered a soft, silent nod, a confirmation that the impossible, with enough perseverance and humility, could indeed blossom. The weight on Tom's chest lessened, replaced by a surge of fierce determination. This was just the beginning. The seeds of redemption had finally taken root. From her kitchen window, Lily watched Tom. Day after day, he toiled in the parched earth, his movements precise and unyielding. The sun beat down, turning the soil to fine dust, yet he persisted, sifting, turning, replanting the last few precious sun petal seeds. Each evening he'd return, covered in dirt, a sheen of sweat on his brow, but with a quiet determination that spoke volumes. The vibrant yellow petals, once the village's pride, were now a distant memory, replaced by barren plots and wilted stems. Yet, in Tom's unwavering dedication, a tiny ember began to glow within Lily's shattered heart. It wasn't the fiery hope of before, but a soft, persistent warmth, like sunlight filtering through a dense canopy. One crisp morning, as the dew still clung to the withered leaves, Lily found herself drawn to the garden's edge. Tom was already there, meticulously tending to a small patch, his back to her. He was humming a low, tuneless melody, a sound she hadn't heard from him in what felt like an eternity. A deep breath filled her lungs, a mixture of earth and damp wood smoke, familiar and comforting. Without a word, she picked up a discarded trowel, its handle smooth beneath her fingers, and knelt beside him. Tom flinched, startled, then turned to see her. His eyes, usually clouded with remorse, widened in surprise, then softened into a tentative, hopeful gaze. "Lily," he breathed, a raw whisper of her name. She offered a small, shy smile, the first genuine one in weeks, and pointed to a stubborn cluster of weeds. "These need to go," she said, her voice a little rusty from disuse. He simply nodded, a profound relief washing over his face, and together they worked. The silence between them wasn't awkward or strained, but a companionable quiet, filled with the scratching of tools against soil, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the quiet rhythm of their shared labor. Her hands, once delicate and accustomed to arranging blooms, now moved with a new purpose, digging deep, loosening the earth. The sun climbed higher, warming her shoulders, and for the first time since the betrayal, Lily felt a sense of belonging, a quiet joy in the simple act of creation. Barnaby, passing by with a basket of fresh-baked bread, paused at the garden gate, a broad smile spreading across his face. He watched them for a long moment, his eyes twinkling with delight, then continued on his way, humming a cheerful tune. The village had been quiet, subdued, since the sun petals had failed. Now, a faint stir of hope rippled through the air, carried on the gentle breeze. As the afternoon light began to mellow, painting the sky in hues of soft orange and rose, Lily uncovered something extraordinary. "Tom, look!" she exclaimed, her voice ringing with genuine excitement. He scrambled over, his brow furrowed with curiosity, and knelt beside her. Nestled in the freshly turned earth, a single sun petal seedling stood out. But it wasn't like the others. Its stem was thicker, almost woody, and its leaves, though small, had a deeper, more vibrant green, with a subtle silvery sheen that seemed to reflect the light. It looked sturdier, more robust, as if defying the very conditions that had withered its predecessors. "It's different," Tom murmured, his voice laced with awe. He carefully brushed away the surrounding soil, revealing a network of surprisingly strong roots. "It's stronger. Somehow, more resilient." Lily gently touched one of the tiny leaves. "It feels tougher, like it's already weathered a storm." A memory stirred within her, a snippet of an old legend about the sun petals adapting, evolving in times of great hardship. Could this be it? A new beginning, born from the ashes of their loss? A shared look passed between them, a silent understanding. This wasn't just a plant. It was a symbol, a testament to endurance, a whisper of a future where beauty could bloom again, even stronger than before. The setting sun cast long shadows across the garden, but in that small, resilient seedling, a brilliant, unfading light had been rekindled. They had not only found a new variety of sun petal, but, in their shared endeavor, had rediscovered a deeper connection, a silent promise to nurture not just the plant, but the burgeoning hope between them. The morning sun, a gentle painter, cast long golden streaks across the village green. As Lily and Tom prepared their demonstration, a small crowd had gathered, a mix of curious faces and a few still skeptical gazes. Barnaby, ever the enthusiast, bounced on the balls of his feet near the front. A basket of his famed ginger biscuits balanced precariously on his arm. Elara, serene as always, stood a little further back, her quiet presence a comforting anchor. "These aren't the sun petals you remember," Tom began, his voice clear and steady, a new confidence woven into its timbre. He held up a single radiant blossom, its petals a deeper, more resilient gold than anything the village had seen before. "These have been nurtured, strengthened. They'll thrive in any garden." Lily, her initial shyness giving way to a quiet determination, stepped forward. "The key is patience and understanding the soil. They need a gentle touch, but they are incredibly resilient." She demonstrated, her hands moving with a practiced grace, how to prepare a patch of earth, how to nestle a tiny seedling into the dark soil. She spoke of the importance of light, but also of shelter during the harshest midday sun, of the delicate balance between too much water and too little. Her words were simple, yet imbued with a deep knowledge that resonated with the villagers. Barnaby, already munching on a biscuit, beamed. "Right then, who's first for a seedling? I've got just the spot next to my prize-winning squashes." Over the next few weeks, the village transformed. What had once been a scattering of practical vegetable patches and a few hardy perennials became a riot of color. The new sun petals, more robust and vibrant, unfurled their golden faces from every available patch of earth. They spilled from window boxes, lined pathways, and even climbed trellises, their cheerful glow a constant reminder of shared effort and renewed hope. Children, their faces smudged with dirt and glee, helped tend the younger plants. Elderly villagers, their hands gnarled by years of labor, found new purpose in coaxing the blossoms to their fullest splendor. Tom, his sleeves rolled up, moved between the gardens, offering advice, his cleverness now channeled into practical solutions for drainage or pest control. He helped Mrs. Gable set up a clever rainwater collection system for her elevated beds, and showed young Finn how to gently prune a particularly vigorous plant. He moved with an easy camaraderie, his remorse for past mistakes a quiet undercurrent to his diligent service. Lily, meanwhile, often sat in her own garden, a haven of light and scent, observing the subtle shifts in the blossoms, learning their deeper language. She shared her insights with anyone who asked, her gentle explanations fostering a genuine love for the flowers that went beyond mere aesthetics. Elara would often join her, their conversations a quiet weaving of nature's wisdom and human resilience. Word of the village's extraordinary bloom began to spread. Travelers, venturing beyond the well-worn paths, heard whispers of a place where the very air shimmered with golden light. They arrived, not in the bustling, often boisterous crowds that Silas's flashy, artificial displays had once attracted, but in smaller, more thoughtful groups. They came to the village green, their eyes widening at the sight. The sun petals were everywhere, an unbroken tapestry of gold and amber, their collective fragrance a soft, sweet hum. There was no artifice here, no grand pronouncements of the world's brightest. Instead, there was an honest, breathtaking beauty that spoke of genuine care and community spirit. A merchant from a distant town, a man usually accustomed to the grandest displays, stood before Barnaby's overflowing window box, his expression one of pure wonder. "I've never seen anything like it," he murmured, reaching out a hesitant finger to touch a velvety petal. "They truly glow from within." Barnaby, beaming, offered him a ginger biscuit. "That's the secret, friend. Grown with good soil and even better intentions." Lily watched from a distance, a soft smile gracing her lips. The village wasn't just in bloom, it was flourishing, its true essence finally unveiled. A testament to what could be rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful, from the ashes of betrayal. The whispers of the past still lingered, a faint shadow, but they were now overshadowed by the vibrant, undeniable radiance of the present. The sun petals, once a source of bitter pain, had become the village's golden heart, a beacon of hope shining brightly for all to see. The late afternoon sun, a painter's stroke of gold and rose, streamed through the large, arched window of the bakery, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Lily sat across from Tom, a half-finished embroidery hoop resting on her lap, a contented smile playing on her lips. Outside, the sounds of children's laughter mingled with the distant bleating of sheep, a symphony of their thriving village. "Remember that first harvest festival after everything?" Lily murmured, her gaze soft. "When Barnaby insisted we both help decorate the town square, even though we could barely look each other in the eye without flinching?" Tom chuckled, a rich, full sound that resonated with genuine happiness. He was meticulously polishing the wooden countertop, his movements economical and practiced. "I, and Alara, bless her, arranged for us to be on opposite sides of the market, selling her spiced honey cakes. She knew exactly what she was doing, didn't she? Giving us space, but still keeping us tethered to the community." Lily nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. The path back to this easy camaraderie had been long and winding, paved with remorse and forgiveness. Tom, once so easily swayed by the allure of grand schemes, had channeled his formidable intellect into perfecting the bakery, creating recipes that became local legends. His commitment to the village, to the people he had inadvertently hurt, was unwavering. And Lily, once so fragile after the betrayal, had found her strength not in forgetting, but in rebuilding, tending to her garden and weaving threads of kindness back into the fabric of their lives. Their story, once a hushed whisper of sorrow and wrong, had transformed into a cherished legend, recounted by parents to their wide-eyed children. It was a tale of resilience, of a community that stumbled but ultimately held fast, and of a love that, though tested, found its truest form in friendship and shared purpose. A gentle knock brought them back to the present. Alara stood at the bakery door, her silver hair braided intricately, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of countless seasons. Behind her, a small group of children, their faces alight with curiosity, peeked around her skirts. "Story time, Alara?" Tom asked, his voice warm. "Indeed," she replied, her smile serene. She gestured for the children to enter, settling them onto cushions near the crackling hearth. Lily poured cups of warm berry tea, the sweet aroma filling the air. Alara began, her voice a soothing cadence that held the children spellbound. "Once, in this very village, there lived a young woman named Lily, whose heart was as open as the summer sky, and a clever young man named Tom, whose ambition sometimes outran his good sense." She wove the narrative with delicate precision, painting vivid pictures of Lily's gentle nature, Tom's bright ideas, the brief shimmer of gold that had nearly shattered everything, and the long, arduous journey back to wholeness. She spoke of Barnaby's unwavering belief in second chances, his comforting pastries a balm to wounded spirits. She highlighted the villagers' collective sorrow and then their collective strength in lifting Lily and helping Tom to make amends. But through it all, Alara concluded, her gaze sweeping over Lily and Tom, a silent acknowledgement of their enduring spirit. The seeds of kindness, once planted, refused to wither. They grew, watered by tears and nurtured by forgiveness, until they blossomed into something even more beautiful than before. As if on cue, a cluster of sun petals, vibrant and golden, caught the last rays of light from the window. They were not ordinary flowers. They were descendants of the very first petals Lily had cultivated, a living testament to her artistry and resilience. Each year, they bloomed with renewed vigor, their brilliant hues a cheerful splash against the bakery's stone walls, a constant reminder of the transformative power of love and perseverance. The children, their eyes wide with wonder, looked from Alara to Lily, then to Tom, and finally to the Sun Petals. They understood, in their innocent way, that the story wasn't just a tale from the past. It was the very essence of their village, breathing and thriving around them. It was the legacy of kindness, the fruit of resilience, and the quiet, enduring power of true community spirit. And in Lily and Tom's intertwined lives, they saw a friendship deeper than any grand romance, built on the solid ground of understanding and shared growth. Their happiness, a quiet joy, resonated in every corner of their beloved home.